Welcome to tonight's episode of the Stream.tv's after show for Legion on FX. I'm Sabine Ibarra, your host for the night, here with...
I'm Ray Holdridge, ready to get this party started. This episode was awesome. I am so hyped to talk about it.
And...
Hey everybody, I'm Lewis Love from Nuke the Fridge, and awesome episode. What's going on? I have no idea, but maybe we can shed some light on it.
I mean, like, just the whole, like, I've seen this twice, and I'm just like...
Here. There is so much going on, but it's great. I'm so excited. Yeah, it's awesome.
We should have done something was off in the beginning when David was, like, super extra confident and cocky and walking around, like, all the place.
Yeah, I mean, right as the episode opens, it starts off right at the end of the last week's episode, which was female Carrie getting shot, and now them carrying her back to Summerland to get her some medical attention because she is messed up. And right away, like you said, there is something different about David.
There's definitely some dark forces taking over his body, and they get more into that in the episode. Who is it? I mean, I don't know. What's reality? What's not real?
Yeah, I mean, we get introduced to this idea of, like, him just being more in control. Like, he tells Sydney, I can take us into a place where I can touch you and do all these things to you.
He can control his powers, and that's what made it so, it was all of a sudden like, wait, when did you get this type of control?
Right.
And that was, at least for me, the big red flag was like, okay, now you have control of your power, but not in a way where it's like, wow, I didn't realize I could do this. It's, hey, check out, look what I can do. And yeah, that made it, that was a big red flag for me.
And Sydney's feeling the love.
Yeah. Oh, finally, Sydney's feeling the love.
She could finally, have some
He was like,
touching.
I'm the magic man.
Yeah,
I was
she
like,
could finally...
Yeah, exactly. Going to the White Room and making her, taking the claim of Magic Man. That was slick, David. That was slick.
So she's also getting very offended when anyone says anything about David.
Oh, yeah.
We don't know if it's because she's whooped or if,
yeah,
what the deal is with that. So.
And I think we really see the big character change in David when they start talking about what they're going to do next. What's the next step? And David really wants to be aggressive and go and save his sister. And now, but again, this isn't just him asking for, he's saying, we are going to save my sister. And that change in him kind of put some of the rest of the team on edge. Even Bird, and the way he aggressively pushes on Bird with Oliver and talking about her husband.
Right.
As he questions her a little bit, like, hey, what's up with this guy? What's up with the diver? And
although there was a point where he refers to Oliver as Oliver in the beginning, but then deeper in the conversation, the more kind of less like David that he's getting, he says the diver and just describes the ice cube room around him. So you kind of feel like maybe it's like the fluctuating personalities.
Yeah, which makes me wonder, like, Oliver could be dangerous to whatever else is going on inside of David. I mean, that's not a new thing. We know there's something else inside him, maybe multiple things going on inside him. And it seemed like, for example, the yellow-eyed demon, not able to access the ice room, which we saw last week. Then why wouldn't he then be wondering, what is Oliver about? What is the diver about? And why is he able to stop me from doing these things?
There's a lot of chatter online right now that we don't know what the heck is reality or what's made up in David's mind. So it's all blown up in this episode, these last two episodes actually.
Yeah.
So it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, which I think is great. I love seeing that expansion on his power. It just gets me excited to see like what else is this guy able to do.
A lot.
Yeah, a lot. And you find out too, Oliver really was a powerful telepath. It seemed like in his own right, him able to access the astral plane. You get history on how he got stuck there from his wife, which he was just messing around the astral plane, man. He became a god and king, and then he decided to stay there.
So what do you guys think of his wife wanting to use David to bring him back and
I like where they're going with that.
Yeah, you kind of got this sense that she's starting to get biased toward him because everyone around them is like, this is dangerous. We could die. And they're like, it's both Melanie and Sydney. Melanie is like, he could bring my husband back. Sydney's like, that's my man. I'm going to stand by him no matter what. And they had made this bond, too, like in the White Room, where she told him, like, if you get lost, we get lost together. Like, you can't, like, do this without me. But then he goes and listens to the voices in the room, in the red room adjacent to the white room, and decides to go without her to D3 to save his sister.
Right.
There's also that scene where Sydney snaps at Melanie, and it's kind of like the same feeling Melanie may feel for her husband, like the same feeling. But it's funny because Melanie is kind of like standing back here, like thinking she's Sydney's, off her rocker or whatnot. But she's doing the same thing, trying to get her husband back.
And the only one who seems to really, at least, who seems to be aware that there might be a danger is Ptolemy. Right? I mean, he's
and Carrie.
And they realize, okay, there's something else going on. And you kind of feel for Bert. I mean, she wants to save her husband, but at the same time, you got to wonder, like, what's that relationship about? We saw a little bit of Oliver. We kind of saw what, his attitude. He was kind of nonchalant, and he seemed to have, I don't know, not that many memories about his wife even in the world outside because he's been there for so long.
Well, one thing we've seen with these powers, we're assuming David's related to Xavier, if he is, these powers will make you crazy because it's just too much. So that maybe he's nuts. Maybe he's forgotten these oppressed memories. He's basically like a god, but not. So
in his own world,
yes,
which takes him to the next, to where we end up going next, right?
Yeah, no, so David ends up showing up at D3, and it's just a crazy massacre.
It's awesome.
Oh my God, it's so good, though.
He takes off in the dead of night, leaves everybody, right? Ends up tricking Sid into putting her in the dream state, the white room, saying, hey, hang out here for a little bit. Disappears. Everybody decides, okay, fine, we're going after him, right? Let's load up. Get in the car, show up. And it's a war zone. Yeah,
there's body parts everywhere.
And I also want to give props to the prop makers of the show because that was disturbing. It was disturbing, and there was no blood. No blood and disturbing. That's the way you do it. And that's the way to do horror, guys.
Oh, and
if you look at all the classic horror films, there's very little blood. But they're disturbing. So that's what the scene was there.
It definitely prepared you that, okay, something major went down. And, I mean, walking up, there's smoke. Yeah, there's bodies. There's fire. Things are broken and destroyed. And you walk through, and I love the way they directed and set this up where you had, you got tense.
Yeah.
And then finally, when they do get underground and the alarms are blaring, you're like, oh, he might still be here.
Yeah.
What kind of state is he in? Because you know that all of his character's different in this episode. You know there's something up with him. So he's now more dangerous than ever, right?
Yeah, and it also goes back to what Dr. Bird said is like we have to control. We have to be on our side, basically. Yeah. Because if they control him and then they have that scene, it's like you could see what he could do when he could control his powers. We see the monitors in the building.
Oof, those monitors.
They were recording everything. And, he was
wrecking fools.
Yeah.
He was wrecking fools, but he was so giddy and like skipping around, and I was like, he looks so fine doing that and happy. I'm into this.
And then sure enough, comes on what looked like, it seems to be some sort of infrared camera, something of that sort. And you see that
yellow-eyed demon.
It is not David, but the yellow-eyed demon in its very large, bulbous, skinny-limbed form. And that's when obviously that was the confirmation. You knew there was something up, but okay, this is the confirmation. David has lost control. And at this point, now I'm wondering, and I mentioned this I think a few episodes ago, I was like, okay, why is the yellow-eyed demon doing this? Is it now really a personality trait of David, and it's just how he's accessing these powers? Or is it more? Does it mean that, or has David really just lost complete control and he's not meaning to disintegrate people into nothing? And that's what's going on.
Just like Apocalypse.
Yeah, he's at that level,
like
that Omega level.
Yeah.
Totally. And we had, right after the team finds out that that's what's happening, Carrie communicates with them and tells them, through going over some of, his brain scans, he's discovered that there's this entity that they describe as a parasite that's leached onto his consciousness. The dead guy on the floor describes him as someone with so much power that wears a human face.
Right, or it has a human face, something like that.
And we also, from that scene with a guy, it's like a doctor that does experiments on the mutants at D3.
Who said they were ready.
Yeah, and he says it wears a human face. But if you look at his point of view, it seemed kind of like okay, he was warning the people. Maybe they're kind of like good guys. We thought, like in their brain, they're good guys because they want to control this guy David who's basically like a ticking nuke.
A ticking time bomb. Exactly.
Totally.
And that's what I love really just even
Yes.
this first half of this episode is like now you're looking at David like, whoa, not only does he have all this power, but there's obviously something dark, a confirmation now there's something dark going on inside him. So what does everyone else know? I mean, they thought they were prepared for him. They obviously weren't.
aren't.
They admitted as they were all killed. And so what did they know about him? Did they know that there was this creature inside him that they had to stop? Or did they just know about David, that maybe his powers were possibly able to go out of control?
Well, they seemed like they weren't ready for it.
Yeah.
They definitely said we got
We
caught.
thought they were.
We thought we were. Now the yellow-eyed creature thing. He could control David. Has David been able to control his powers at all? But see, the creature can.
The creature can.
Right.
Maybe that's a hint.
Because the end of the
Something.
last episode, David agrees to like work with him through Lenny or her. through
Or at
Lenny.
least Lenny. We get that with the Lenny personality, you know, whether, and this episode was interesting in that, where I'm still not 100% sure that these personalities, they might be controlled by the yellow-eyed demon, but I question whether or not they're actually one person, one actual being just shape-shifting in different forms. I think it would be interesting to see if David is really fractured in the mind, if he really does have multiple personality disorder, and this yellow-eyed demon's able to control these personalities, why not then still have some sort, in a weird way, these personalities can still be independent?
Right.
Is that something that's possible?
Or even how last week I mentioned that like, oh, what if it's like in Insidious where like the astral plane is like the further and there's this entity that's leeching onto David, like the entity that wanted to leech on the little kid and the dad in Insidious. And what if there's like multiple? Because there could be different things in the astral plane. Yeah.
So why not have this all just be like, while in this young boy, David as a young boy, traveling through the astral plane, why not have all of these personalities and minds latch onto him and then get dominated by one big baddie that comes out of nowhere and says, okay, I'm now going to be in control.
You know, I'm kind of giggling here because this is the 5th episode and we're talking about like astral planes. We're talking about like, what the hell? This is just a 5th episode, guys.
I know. This is amazing.
It's like we're talking about the further.
Yeah.
It's like, we're talking about apocalypse. People getting
Omega
killed.
level, yeah.
And now we're going to talk about the Muppets.
Yeah. Yes, yeah.
So in like a sort of moment of clarity, David takes Sid into the White Room.
Yeah.
And there's a moment where he's just sitting on the bed with a banjo
You're
and
right.
starts playing the Rainbow Connection, but he looks like he's shitting his pants while doing this, and then Sid's also shitting her pants, and you're just like, what is happening? I kind of feel like the song might be a warning, or
Very much
to
so.
tell her to do something.
Yeah, no, that's definitely how it felt. It felt like, hey, David's losing control, and there is something else going on, and this was kind of his, in a weird way, subconsciously, his only way to communicate that with someone, let alone Sid.
Yeah.
You know, and Sid having that type of close connection to David might be the only person that could actually go that far into David's mind to touch his subconscious, even when he's being controlled. And yeah, going into that room and being able to close that door and kind of now talk with the real David. It goes to show that slowly but surely David is falling down the rabbit hole. He's going deeper and deeper into whatever this mess is.
Yeah,
and
like astral
he
plane,
needs help.
inceptionness going on.
Yeah, he needs help for sure. And this creature is, and I just love that yeah, 5th episode, and we're already now hitting on such a major plot point.
Yeah,
it seems like.
nuts.
So it makes me that much more excited to what the story's gonna reveal, because this is a big deal, obviously.
Let's see where it goes.
Yeah, no, and I also think there might be something in the song choice for Rainbow Connection.
Oh, definitely.
Because there's in one of the earlier episodes, I think it's when he meets Sydney, the song "She's a Rainbow" is playing. So like Rainbow Connection, she's a rainbow. Maybe it's like communicating something to her about her powers. I don't know. We'll see. Because then we go back to the real world where they're now at David's childhood home, and Amy is there.
Because after D3, he kind of just runs off, or he disappears, and with his sister, and and everyone's wondering where they're going, and somehow Sid, that's when Sid gets pulled into the White Room, and she realizes, oh, he went home.
Yeah.
And what does that mean? And now, they head over to his old pad, and as soon as they get out of the car, Bird says, okay, guys, ish is getting real.
Yeah.
Okay, let's make sure we lock it up, all right, and don't screw around. 3 steps later, they lose all hearing.
Yep.
Yeah, that was
sound,
nuts.
they can't scream a thing. Because Carrie was like, what the the whole time. And
Is that what she said?
Yeah.
I'm horrible with lip reading.
Everyone's looking around at each other trying to figure
Carrie
out what they're saying.
shows up with the thing.
Yeah, later, but even in the beginning before they go on, they're just like, hey, stop panicking.
Yeah.
Stop panicking, follow me. Let's go. And that just created such a tense atmosphere for the rest of that episode.
And whenever sound would come in.
Oh, yeah, and it just changed. And so, again, props to the creators of the show and what they're doing. They're taking advantage of all these little nuances in horror and in suspense.
Yeah. This episode had a little bit of everything, and then also the guy with the curly hair was following him. We didn't mention him.
Yes, of course. The eye. Yes, totally forgot. That's right. The eye's been watching them from D3,
and he was behind them when they lost their hearing. So,
which makes me wonder, how does David's powers influence him? If at all, we've seen the eye being able to notice these astral projections once before, right? And he also seems to have some sort of mind manipulation, power of telepathy of sorts, or at least messing with the senses for him to change his appearance and things like that. And
the Jerry curls, man.
And is he a bad guy?
Right.
Is he a bad guy? Because now, like Louis, like you said, is this group really, maybe they're actually necessary because they know something is going on with David that is bigger than what seems to be at the surface.
Well, if you have a guy that, like David, who could do the things he did, especially when we saw the carnage at D3, and they don't know if he's being controlled or what. They think it's just him. Of course, they're going to be trying to figure out what the heck's going on.
Yeah.
Because they don't know the deal about the personalities or whatnot.
Exactly.
So it makes total sense. They're going to come in, some group's going to come in and go, hey, these guys are bad news. We got to stop them or find some way to control them or contain them.
Yeah, and so
their point of view, they're good.
I think so too. I think that opens up a whole new branch, which in one episode difference, obviously it was like, oh, these guys are purely bad guys, and now they have me thinking something different. And it has me thinking something different with the sister and her situation too. The conversation between her and David, I'll quote David, right before the team shows up, I thought was fantastic. And we had a big revelation there.
Yeah, totally. Because we have Aubrey Plaza coming out of the wall, Lenny, and just crawling all over, or kind of being very weird and sensual, but also manipulative toward David to push him into pressuring Amy into confessing something. Like, what's the secret? What's the secret?
Right.
Yeah.
She's also acting like, because we know that she may be a man. Or she's acting like
Lenny.
Yeah.
Like a man.
There's that flash too.
Yeah. So she's kind of like with the sister. He's very aggressive, very.
Which goes back to saying, like, is Lenny really just part of another being of this yellow-eyed demon and just a different form of him, or is and being manipulated in that way? Because that would certainly lead to that. If it's acting like something as aggressive as the yellow-eyed demon, why not? Why not? Because it seems to be acting like David was. David has that same aggressive characteristics, just like Lenny. Because honestly, I thought it was just Lenny controlling David, and then showed the reveal that it was the yellow-eyed demon. And so, is it just one part's working together?
Confusing, because there's even a moment where we were talking about just what David is wearing. He's wearing like a black shirt with a yellow triangle.
Right.
And Louis, you had some ideas about that.
Well, yeah, Trinity. He's three different personalities. Maybe that's what the triangle shirt means. I looked up see if he wears that in the comic. I didn't see anything like that.
No.
So maybe that's what they're trying to symbolize with the shirt. I know he wears different kind of shirts all the time. He's wearing three weird shirts already. Only the 5th episode. So next week we may get an Octagon.
Right.
Who knows?
I just think the big reveal, knowing obviously when his sister Amy reveals, like, hey, you're adopted. And
he switches.
He changes because now then all of a sudden the real David's there.
Yeah.
And it's okay, the rest of these personalities, the yellow-eyed demon, seem to have known that already. The only one who didn't know was David. And sure enough, then as soon as she says that, as soon as they keep pushing her, says, what's the secret? What's the secret? You're adopted. There's the real David. And he hears that, and you see his reaction.
Yeah, he starts crying.
Right. And I think to him, like, why did that happen? Why did the yellow demon want that? And I think, and I'm so, and that's what's fascinating. Why did that reveal have to happen at that moment? Why was it pushed for it to happen then?
Because I honestly think it's because that's the weakest we've seen David. That's like a really, really weak point to where he could overpower David completely.
True. Yeah, very good point. Very good point.
I'm thinking these are all these personalities are oppressive memories. They're oppressing part of his childhood.
Well, I mean, it made reference even earlier in the episode about how the yellow-eyed demons seem to be able to suppress memories and change things. Every time David became aware of its presence, is able to change it. And now that you see kind of that crack, then the team shows up in the room shortly after. They find Amy. She's on the floor, kind of in a catatonic state. There's David. Sid's talking to him, and then they end up getting ran in with who you assume is the Eye, opens fire on him.
Yeah.
And then time seems to freeze.
They go immediately into the White Room.
Right.
And yeah, whew.
Yeah. It's a scary moment.
We're back at the pilot.
Yeah.
It's the pilot again.
Well, no, essentially, like, they're back in the White Room, and the yellow-eyed demon shows up, and it starts coming for Sydney, and Sydney's, like, screaming, but, like, her vocal cords are kind of, like, chopping up, and it's really crazy.
It's an insanely scary scene.
Yeah.
I mean, really, it's a terrifying scene. If you think about it, you have David and Sid in the room. You see it's David. She's talking to him and trying to reach to him. But then here comes the yellow-eyed demon,
Slowly.
now attacking her, which I think, again, shows
it's
she's the
pushing.
threat.
It's like pushing him because weakened him by telling him the truth about his being adopted. And then Sydney gets shot at, essentially. He moves them, and then this thing's attacking her. So he's just, like, exploding. Like, he's going nuclear.
Yep.
Yeah. And to then, obviously, with that, I mean, which is, it's such a weird body. I get so creeped out by that thing every time I see it. And get to the point where you think Sid's about to disappear, and then, snap. They're back in an asylum. And
They're
that
back
ending,
at
I thought, back at Clockworks, and they're in a circle. But not just Sid, not just David, everybody is
including
there.
the Eye.
And yet, who's the therapist? Lenny. So, and we have a lot, I want to talk about that, guys. What are the theories we have on that we're back and forth. I'm kind of on the opposite end with you guys on that, what that means.
Well, David has a power, one of his powers in the comics is time travel, but it could be a reset. But
you call reset? I say they fell deeper into the dreamscape. I think they just went one level deeper. I agree with you. I think that the yellow-eyed demon took advantage of David's now even more fragile state and gain more control and just push them deeper. Because he's at the point, he realizes now Sid is a threat.
Yeah.
I think Sid is a threat to his control over David. And one, because of them switching bodies, I think, and how intimate and close they've become now.
The power of love.
The power of love is a big deal. And so with that threat, has to do something, so why not make you question all of reality by creating a brand new reality where everyone's crazy? Not just you, but everyone else who you thought were your friends and thought were your teachers, like Bird, and they're all crazy. So why not shake it up that way?
It's insane. Like, and if you think about some of the stuff we were talking about earlier as well, if it's the Shadow King and it has taken different forms, we kind of pieced it together that the dog was named King, and it was very likely the first form that it came to David in.
Yeah. I think it makes the most sense in terms of, again, this is a theory. This is a theory where let's assume that they're going to stick with the fact that Professor X is David's father.
Yeah.
Professor X dukes it out with the Shadow King. Shadow King gets pumped. Shadow King's weak, so why not attach himself to the small, young, easily manipulated mind of a child, let alone a child who's as powerful as David, that he can access that reality. And the only way he can really appear, because he's so weak, is as a dog. Because what child's gonna question a dog? You always wanted a dog. I had dogs, I have 5 dogs. I'm probably crazy. For all I know, they're different personalities. I don't know, but I think calling him king, I think that's a great sign.
King is like a very good call.
And as David grows and gets older, more personalities show up. They become more aggressive and
it starts getting stronger.
Yeah.
So we had a description of what the guy with the yellow eyes is too. It was like a parasite.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think of that theory? Meaning it's not really personality of David.
Yeah.
So that was that's another direction that shows.
I think so. That something else lashed onto him, and Carrie, male Carrie, referenced that he believed that while yes, David is a very powerful mutant, he is a very powerful mutant in his own right. This parasite is something else, older, more, just as if not more powerful, to be able to connect himself to David. And that's the only reason David could survive having such a being attached to him is if he was that powerful.
And would that play in more into your theory about the Shadow King?
I think so. I think so. I think that's definitely what would fit. Obviously, this is only episode 5. Like, only episode 5. And there's already so much epicness happening.
Yeah.
So this could obviously take totally different turns. But all I can say, I am so enjoying what the writers are doing. I'm enjoying where they're taking this and playing with the lore of it, and really also just the different styles that they're shooting it, from the sound to the visuals. It's really making it fun to follow.
And a little bit of horror.
Oh
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
definitely make it fun.
Guys, I'm gonna ask you a question. What do you think the writers' room looks for this?
Jeez. You want to go first on that one?
Oh my gosh, I would love to be in that
no,
writer's
Be a
room.
fly on a wall.
Right.
No joke. I think there's a lot of coffee involved and a lot of people getting excited and saying, guys, you know what would be great? What? A tree just appears in the middle of the bedroom.
Just in the middle of the room,
because why not? Okay, cool. Like, what do those things mean? So I just, again, I love where they're going with this. These guys obviously care about what they're doing. And that's what really impresses me, is that every episode, this one, the most linear feeling, I think, even like last week's episode felt very linear. It was going somewhere exciting. It didn't lose that I feel like almost like a mushroom trip that you're on with this show. You know, there's still a lot of craziness, a lot like that losing sound, but they're aggressively going somewhere.
Yeah, you're right, because we were talking about earlier, it was a little bit too much of a mushroom trip, the first 3 episodes, and these last 2 episodes, it's like, okay, guys, we got to calm down, we got that, now let's get into the storyline, but they didn't really let go of all the mushroom trip.
Yeah.
No.
It's still there.
I mean, every episode's like some next level shit, honestly. Like, whether it's time travel or whether it's like an Inception-like sort of like, we're in the Shadow King's realm right now and he's gonna break everybody. Like, we're gonna have to wait till next week to find out.
And I'll be honest, it's been a while since I've been this excited and kind of wondering where they go, because for all I know, I'm totally wrong, and yeah, it's time travel, and this is like his cousin Dewey showing up out of nowhere has actually been attached the whole time, so I don't know.
All right, well, if you enjoyed chatting with us about Legion, be sure to tune in next week. We will be back.
Yes.
We will be freaking out. And in the meantime, hit us up on social media, in our YouTube comments, on Twitter, and Facebook on thestream.tv. That's where you can find everything with all their after shows in this network. But really quick before we head out, let's all let everyone know where you can be found.
Yeah.
Yeah, where could we be found? We
I
don't
don't
know
know.
because we're in another dimension.
I know, right?
We don't know, but hey, I'm Louis Love. You could find me on Twitter at Nuke the Fridge. I'm also always stalking Lance Osfresser's discussion pages, the DC discussion and the Supergirl. So Lance, thanks for the awesome Facebook pages, and I'll be there chiming in.
All right. And I'm Ray Holdridge. You can find me on RayDallas67 on Twitter, and also Ray Holdridge, Dos Roman numerals, on Instagram.
You can find me on Twitter at Sabina Has No R, also hosting The Flash and the Supergirl after shows with Louis Love, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for
Thank
coming
you.
by.